Picture this. It's July 8th, 2011. A 44-year-old mother of three, Neek Laley, walks through her front door. Her husband's security system, this huge web of 21 cameras, it records her coming home. But just a few hours later, she's gone, vanished. The very system that was designed to watch every single move, every moment, somehow missed the one that mattered the most. And as investigators would soon find out, that same system held the key to a really, really disturbing secret.
So that's the big question, right? It's the paradox at the very heart of this case, and it's a question that would baffle police and absolutely tear a family apart. I mean, how could a house that's wired to see everything suddenly go completely dark for a crucial 48-hour period? Or maybe it didn't.
This is Neek Laley, and from what everyone said, she was a fierce, ambitious woman, working over 65 hours a week to support her three kids. But behind the closed doors of her home, the one that was under constant surveillance, a very different story was playing out. The last time anyone saw her alive was right there on her own security camera, coming home on a Friday night. Those first couple of weeks after Neek disappeared were just a mess of confusion, really strange delays, and a story from her husband that, well, it just didn't add up. Just look at the inaction here. For 2 whole days, Neek is gone, and her husband Matthew just tells their kids she'd left for a bit. It's only after Neek's sister basically forces his hand that he finally calls the police. And then, 2 weeks later, it isn't even the police who find her. It's a search party, put together by Neek's own daughter Alex, that makes the heartbreaking discovery in the woods, just minutes from their house.
To really get what happened here, you have to understand the environment Neek was living in. Because it wasn't just a house. It was, for all intents and purposes, a fortress of surveillance. And the architect of that fortress was her husband, Matthew.
21. Just let that number sink in for a second. 21 cameras. They were inside, outside, some were even recording audio. Matthew's story was that he installed them after a kid's bike got stolen, but it clearly escalated into a full-blown obsession. He was monitoring everything, turning his family's home into a total surveillance zone.
And this constant watching, it created this deep split within the family. You can see the huge difference in their own words right here. For the younger daughter, Amanda, it was kind of cool, Dad would show her deer in the yard. But for Neek's oldest, Alex, it felt like a prison. She felt constantly watched, like she couldn't even relax on her own couch. She knew this wasn't about security, it was about control.
And Neek, well, she had reached her absolute breaking point. Just 2 weeks before she went missing, she flat out told her sister, "I'm done. I hate my husband. My marriage is over." You see, Matthew had become convinced she was having an affair, and his constant accusations and spying had just pushed her over the edge. She was actually making plans to leave him for good.
Okay, so the police have a potential motive, and a house that's basically one giant hard drive. But Matthew's obsession with recording everything was about to become the investigators' worst nightmare.
Over 500,000 video files. That's what they pulled from Matthew's hard drives. And it was just a chaotic digital mess. No names, no dates, no timestamps. It was a data dump that seemed almost deliberately designed to be impossible to sort through. One detective, Detective Everson, spent 4 months working 60-hour weeks just watching video, and he described it perfectly. He said, "It was like looking for a needle in a stack of needles." I mean, can you even imagine? But they stuck with it, and it paid off. First, they found the very last footage of Neek alive just after midnight on July 8th. And then, nothing. A 48-hour gap. A total black hole in the footage right when she disappeared. Matthew claimed Neek got mad and ripped the wires out. But forensic analysis of his computer, where experts can see all the hidden activity, it told a totally different story. It proved he had deliberately deleted files on 2 very specific days. The day he reported her missing and the day her body was found. And then they found a folder on his computer named Fights. It was filled with thousands of audio clips he'd secretly recorded and then edited to make Neek sound unhinged while he always sounded calm. It was a calculated digital smear campaign.
And this digital manipulation, it wasn't just for the police. When the case finally went to trial 4 years later, Matthew turned his most powerful weapon of control against his own family, splitting them apart right there on the witness stand. Alex, Neek's oldest daughter, she got on the stand for the prosecution. She bravely described the escalating abuse she saw before she was forced to move out, about being locked in bathrooms, about hearing her mom's desperate pleas at night. Her testimony painted this vivid, terrifying picture of the fear inside that house. And then,
In a truly tragic turn, Matthew put his own 14-year-old daughter, Amanda, on the stand to defend him. For the 4 years since her mother's death, Matthew had been her only parent. He'd isolated her from her mom's family and just fed her his own twisted version of the truth.
And so, a teenage girl testified against her own mother's memory, just repeating the story her dad had drilled into her, that Neek was unstable, that she heard voices, that she was the problem. He had even made Amanda listen to those doctored fights recordings, basically turning her into an unwilling pawn in his own defense.
But the prosecution had a trump card. They had an audio recording that Matthew hadn't edited carefully enough. In it, you hear Neek confronting him directly about his violence. Her own voice, filling that courtroom, delivered this haunting rebuttal to everything the defense was claiming, and it gave everyone a chilling glimpse into her final desperate days.
So, with the digital evidence glowing his cover-up wide open and his wife's own words basically condemning him from the grave, the jury was left to decide his fate.
And they didn't take long. After just 3 hours, the verdict was in. Guilty. Guilty of malice murder, felony murder, and multiple counts of illegal surveillance and eavesdropping. The very technology Matthew used to control and torment his wife became the undeniable proof of his crimes.
The prosecution laid out the motive with chilling clarity. Neek was leaving him, and Matthew, a man obsessed with control, just couldn't let that happen. An autopsy found GHB in her system. The theory was he drugged her to incapacitate her, to get absolute control one last time. It was the ultimate, terrifying act of possession. If I can't have you, no one will.
But you know, the story doesn't end with a prison sentence. Away from her father's toxic influence, Amanda slowly began to see the truth. She saw the evidence, she remembered what she'd been forced to do, and she finally broke free. She reached out to her sister, Alex, and after years of this painful separation, the truth finally healed that wound Matthew had created, and the sisters were reunited.
Neek's story is a tragic warning about how control can disguise itself as security, but her family has turned their pain into this powerful message of hope. They want anyone who is suffering in silence to know this: you are worthy of love and respect. Make sure to tell someone you are not alone. There is always a way out. And that is a legacy of strength that no camera can ever erase.